You'll be happy this weekend anyways, Niall. It's a weekend for hurling people. 3 matches on television, all 3 hurling matches. Now, I might have a little bit of a problem with Pádraig Pearse's Mount Ballymoy not being on the telly, getting bumped out for Kilmallock and Middleton. Maybe, equalise it up a little bit and keep football people a little bit happy. But that's the situation we're in. Very, very obvious what the game of the weekend is, whether you're looking at football or hurling, and it's Ballygunner versus Lockmore Castellini. This is in Fraher Field at 3:15. Wonder why it's there. That's a boggy old pitch. Now I know Walsh Park is a little bit boggy at this time of the year as well, but I'd imagine Ballygunner with the game kind of that they play, a running game, short passing game, that boggy field might not suit them too much.
It probably won't suit them as much as we seen them the last time. They always play that kind of style of hurling, the short pass, and they've a lot of quick players like Desi Hutchinson and this kind of thing. So I'd say Lockmore won't be too displeased that it's in Fraher Field anyway.
Yeah. Now you're giving Lockmore Castellini a good chance in this. You're obviously being very biased as a tip man, and you're using, I'm sure, the inspirational performance by Boris Ali. Was it 2 or 3 years ago now at this stage? Brendan Maher, fairy tale stuff performance, dragged Ballygunner down into a battle that they didn't want. And even though Ballygunner looked like the better team, they dragged them down into the battle. The parish got behind them and they got over the line and won the Munster title. And Paddy the Cock came out in the field after the game. You think there's going to be a repeat of this?
Well, speaking of boggy fields, it was a very sort of a wet and boggy day that day.
Where was that match?
It definitely suited Bursley. It was down in Waterford as well, I'm nearly sure. But I suppose that is one of the reasons Ballygunner have they've been outstanding this year, and they haven't really been fully tested as such. They kind of coasted through Waterford and bet Ballyea, a depleted Ballyea who were missing Tony Kelly, bet them fairly handy. And I suppose I'd give Lockmore a chance against anyone, to be honest. Having watched them the last 2 years, whether it was a hurling or a football game, any game that they've played has been a tight game. And that goes up to last weekend. They lost eventually in extra time, but it went all the way to extra time. And it seems that that's the way most Lockmore games will go. When they played Kildanyon last year, they showed that day that was a lovely day in Semple Stadium. They were well able to play on a good day as well. So while the boggy pitch mightn't suit Ballygunner, it won't give Lockmore the boost that it might seem. But no, Lockmore, whoever they're playing, the day against Thurles, they kind of that kind of became a dogfight for a finish, and the last 20 minutes, Thurles will be well able to play this kind of short game that maybe Ballygunner will be trying this weekend.
Not to the extent of Ballygunner.
Not to the extent of Ballygunner, but if that's what Ballygunner are looking for, Lockmore are such a they're such a hard working team that they might be able to horse them out of it and not give them the time to play that type of a game. So yeah, I suppose that's why I give them a chance.
I'm sure that's what they'll be trying to do. That game was in Páirc Uí Rinn, by the way. I was wondering, it's not unusual to see those matches in Páirc Uí Rinn. Whole question with Lockmore Castellini, Lee, is they're on the road. This will be the 19th week in a row. They lost last week. Again, it's this whole clash of styles. Lockmore Castellini are a bit more direct. Ballygunner are a possession type team, and it can be a little bit frustrating if you're putting it long, you don't win it, and now Ballygunner don't give you the ball, the ball back, so you could get punished. I think that's why Ballygunner kind of dominate teams that might not play that same style as them. The whole thing, can Lockmore Castellini keep this going? For me, they're really, really up against that.
Yeah, no, they definitely are, and even just in terms of the preparation of both teams, it couldn't be more different. Ballygunner had an 8-week layoff before finally playing a match. Lockmore Castellini, the complete opposite, 19 weeks now on the bounce, between football and hurling, just constantly every weekend they have a championship game to be preparing for. So it's like momentum v long-term preparation in terms of that. It can be frustrating when you play the sort of long ball, just lose it, and then you don't know when you're going to get it again, and then it sort of frustrates you and you want to change your game plan and be a bit more patient with the ball. But if that's not what you set out to do, it can just upset the rhythm of things. You got to wonder when this momentum can eventually run out. I know they lost in the football last week. They took it to extra time. They did brilliantly there. I think they were still clapped off the field. No Lockmore fans going to say that this was a bad season no matter what happened. But you have to be just wondering, if you keep tapping into your reserve like they keep doing, every last inch, every last ounce that they've got, they're just going to run out eventually. And then Ballygunner are such monsters of an opposition that it might be this weekend that they finally run out.
Yeah, the great thing about club teams is that, and Lockmore, is that they have their county players in brilliant positions. Like, you could have 3 on a full backline county player. You know, they have the lovely spread, the 2.5 backline. You have the 2 McGraths kind of up front, and it's a nice spread of where they're strongest, which will always give them a chance. Other big football game. This is Padraig Pearse's against Mount Bellew-Mylock. This is the Connacht semi-final. This is at 1:30. This is clashing with Kilmallock and Middleton. So the Kilmallock-Middleton is on TG Cahir. Like, I mean, Padraig Pearse's are at a very, very big disadvantage here, and it's not of their own making. So they won the county final. They're supposed to be out in the Connacht Club 3 weeks later. Mount Bellew-Mylock won the Galway county final, and then had to go out against Ballinamore the week after and beat them. They were down at half time. Then Mount Bellew-Mylock they were supposed to play the following week again, which will be a huge advantage to Padraig Pearse's after their 3-week break. Mount Bellew-Mylock 3 weeks on the trot, maybe 4. And, you know, county final celebration and that. Mount Bellew-Mylock got a COVID outbreak. Now, the Connacht Council says it's an undisclosed level of infection within the Galway club's camp. That's what's being reported. They're not even saying how many they had. And this game has been postponed 3 weeks because of an undisclosed level of infection within the Mount Bellew-Mylock. Now, I'm not saying there wasn't an infection. There probably was. It's definitely an advantage to Mount Bellew-Mylock that they didn't have to play that following week, because they would have been at a disadvantage with all the weeks in a row and the celebrations and stuff like that. It's strange that they won't announce why. How severe is it? Why is this game called off? Like, Padraig Pearse's should be looking for answers for this, as far as I'm concerned. So now, instead of 3-week break for Padraig Pearse's, they're sitting on their arses for 6 weeks. Do you know what I mean? It's a terrible disadvantage for the Connacht Council not to come out and say, why have we postponed this? Here's the thing. Cast your mind back to 3 years ago and 4 of your players got the flu. Niall, could you call a game off? Like, no. This has to end, calling games off and being vague about it. Connacht Council not telling us why, how many's sick, how many's out. What's the story? Why are Padraig Pearse's being disadvantaged like this? Like, I mean, I don't get this.
Well, I remember we were talking about this 3 weeks ago, and we were saying, like, it was, you know, if you had a player injured, if you had a player sick, you're going to miss. They're going to be missing for the game, and you're just going to have to deal with it. And that's the way it should be. Like, we've been living with the virus now for like it's nearly 2 years now. Like, and you would wonder at this stage, with everyone vaccinated and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we're saying. Like, why are games being called off for that now? Like, it's nearly going on too long at this stage. Like, but I'd say for Padraig Pearse's, they must have some sort of reason. They must have some communication that has kept them from kicking up a fuss about this, because
you see, you can't kick up a fuss about it. You know, I can kick up a fuss about it because I don't care about what, you know, people will criticise me even for kicking up a fuss about it. If you kick up a fuss about something like this, oh God, you don't care about somebody being sick. You know, it's this kind of attitude. Whereas the way I look at it, it's outdoor, it's winter, it's windy. If you're sick, don't play. If you're not sick, play. And stop this messing.
At this stage, you think people would give out to Padraig Pearse's for kicking up a fuss, you know, like about... I just think Padraig Pearse's, like, they're well within their rights to kick up a fuss, because when they won that Roscommon County final, they're expecting a 3-week gap, and they're probably training and preparing for that. The last 3 weeks now, it's kind of dragged on for them, and like it's far from ideal for them to be playing this weekend, and it definitely suits Mount Bellew-Mylock a bit more to have got the 2 weeks when they probably needed it. Like, so they can't be too happy about the way it's worked out.
No, definitely not. Anyway, the other big one in the hurling is Dunloy versus Slaughtneil. This is in the athletic grounds in Armagh. Slaughtneil have won the last 3 of the last 4 Ulsters. They've won 9 in a row in Derry. They beat Dunloy in 2007 and 2019. I think 2017 and 2019. I think, was it the 17 was a final or the 19?
Semi-final 17, final 19.
Final in 19. Mickey McShane, after the 2019 finally, like, I mean, there must have been some sort of talk. I was trying to find it today because I was like, this is a grudge match between these two, and I was trying to find out why, and I remember something going on, and it was Mickey McShane, who's the Slaughtneil manager, who is now the Tyrone hurling manager. He was appointed this year. he was saying, we're coming out, this was after the beat Dunloy in 2019, we're coming out to prove ourselves. You saw out there who the best hurling team was. And then he went on to explain the drive we got this week from people talking about how we weren't a good enough hurling team, that we were going to have to come out and bully Dunloy, physically intimidate them and do all of those things, but we wouldn't be able to out-hurl them. And they've certainly out-hurled them the last 2 times they've played them. But I think where this is coming from, I couldn't find the quotes from Dunloy, but it was a kind of an attitude that Antrim are hurlers and the Derry boys are a bit of mullickers and we've the skillful hurlers. Do you know, that kind of attitude that Mickey McShane, who incidentally is an Antrim man, you know, is getting a little bit pissed off about.
Yeah, there's no doubt that that's the case. Up in Antrim, especially among the North Coast, it's all hurling up there, sort of like Ballycastle, and then just them sort of towns near the sea, they just love their hurling and they're not really interested in football. So the Antrim Championship would be so much stronger in terms of that. Like Slaughtneil dominate Derry, they can sort of sleepwalk their way through it at times. So the sort of impression is that they're not really real hurlers. You know, they're more focused on the football, they prefer it, they get through their hurling handy enough, and then they go into Ulster where they just try to rough teams up and try to be physical and stop real hurling teams from playing, you know, the beautiful game, as it were. But in 2019, yeah, that was definitely the mentality they went into the game, you know, to try and prove them wrong, and in the end they were definitely right.
I thought it was the Glens was where all the hurling was in Antrim.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely up North Coast especially. Like, I mean, you're talking, if the names escape me now, I don't even know why. Exactly, Cushendall. Yeah. You know, it's like nearer to Scotland than anywhere else. They're like in a whole little world of their own up there. They just live and breathe sort of hurling, Ballycastle and places. You go up there and like it's unusual for a Tyrone man to see, because genuinely, like, there's no hurling where I'm from. It is all football. In its entirety, a little bit in Derry, like when you get near the mountains, like the Sperrin Mountains and stuff. But in terms of Antrim, yeah, we go on like summer holidays, you know, to the likes of Ballycastle, just because there's beaches and stuff, and everyone's out with their hurls and they're pucking away, and it was nearly like I nearly associate seeing that with holiday time and summertime, you know, because that's how unusual it was for a Tyrone man, you know, where in Mid-Ulster it's just purely football. But yeah, up there they live and breathe hurling.
Yeah. Well, did you know that Laois is the only county that touches another county that doesn't touch the sea? So, like, I can't get any more inlands than Laois. Anyways, that's what we say in Laois. The thing about Slaughtneil and this inferiority complex that their manager is obviously fighting against, or that perception that's out there, I think their performance against Ballyhale Shamrocks showed the whole country how good they are. So maybe that kind of, you know, reaction, Slaughtneil kind of that day, people were like, Jesus, these lads are a right team.
Oh, they had Ballyhale in all sorts of bother that day, and if it wasn't for Colin Fennelly, I'm nearly sure he got 2 goals that day. They nearly had them beaten, like, and yeah. I think that was it up in Belfast, and the atmosphere was unbelievable that same day.
On the telly, yeah.
Yeah, and like there was, as Lee was talking there, it kind of reminded me of that. There was young lads going around with hurls, and there was loads of people out pucking on the pitch at half time, and it was kind of it was an advertisement for hurling in Antrim and how passionate they are about it. And yeah, like talking about
Shane McGuigan man-marked TJ Reid.
Shane McGuigan,
that a good one. He plays wing back for the hurlers.
Yeah, and they had loads, like Christy McCaig was there lording it that day, and all these lads as well. And no, it was a brilliant performance. And I suppose looking back on the Slaughtneil and Dunloy rivalry, I just seen Gregory O'Kane, and he was the Dunloy manager, and he was saying that this was maybe 2017 or 19, and he was praising Slaughtneil and saying that they were such brilliant athletes, and after all
that's an insult in itself.
Like, if you read between the lines, that's where that kind of tension maybe comes from. And I'd say the Slaughtneil boys, well, you'd think it's a compliment. Like, he was kind of saying, oh, they're athletes and they've been playing so much football, they're such superior athletes to us. Like, you're not giving it to them that they're better hurlers than us, you know.
Yeah. Oh, that's where it obviously came from. I couldn't find where it came from, but like, I mean, we obviously, Niall DC explained to us on the show anyways, the respect hurling people have for lads that are footballers, that they just do the donkey work, they do the hard work, they run around, and then they'll give it to me and we'll stick it over the bar. So I think that's probably maybe what Slaughtneil are a little bit pissed off over, because they were known nationally more for football than they were for hurling, even though, you know, their achievements in hurling probably have outweighed their football now at this stage, especially if they win it this year. Kilmallock from Limerick beat it, playing Middleton. This will be a good game, I'm sure, as well. I'm looking forward to seeing Middleton. The whole
Ben
O'Connor thing, the whole Lehan. I love watching Lehan when he's in form. I hate watching him when he's not in form because you almost feel uncomfortable he can be that bad. But the whole Ben O'Connor kind of thing, and obviously Kilmallock are a very good team as well. This is on TG Cahir at 1:15 now.
Yeah, you're building up there. It's easy to see why TG Cahir went for that instead of the Mount Bellew Pádraig Pearse's game now, isn't it? No, in fairness, like it should be a good game. I was interviewing Graham Mulcahy there a few weeks ago, and he was saying that they played in a challenge match a few months ago at the start of the season, and it was a tight game and there was nothing between them, and you'd expect something similar again this weekend. Like Kilmallock, like they're such a consistent team. Like we were talking about them before, and they were in the 2015 All-Ireland Club Final, and every year since, from 2015 the whole way up to now, they've been made every Limerick semi-final, like, and they lost the final in 2017, but they're always there, and the spine of that team that got to the final in 2015 is still there. Like there's 8 of them that started that day, right, that were starting in the Limerick final. They have a few young lads in as well, like your man Oisin O'Reilly, who he's been well, aside from Graham Mulcahy maybe, like he's been their main scorer and got a brilliant goal in the county final. There's another few as well, and it's just, I suppose, Kilmallock, they've so much experience behind them at this stage.
Who did the lad at centre forward you said
Michael or Oisin O'Reilly got the goal. There's Michael Houlihan as well, who's been
Oisin O'Reilly was the fella who got fouled and scored the goal anyways. The hurl,
he got flaked on his way in.
He's a right good player, that
he
fella.
Is brilliant, yeah. And I suppose they've really added to Kilmallock. Like when you have Mulcahy up there as well, like he was on fire in that Limerick County final. He got 7 points from play. So like Kilmallock, they're a strong, and they're a strong club team. Like they'll never go down too easy. Kilmallock or Middleton, like they had a few bad years, but they bounced back like superbly really this year, with Conor Lahan on fire. And I suppose it'll be interesting to see who comes out on top, because when you're looking at them coming in, not knowing huge amounts about either team, they seem very evenly matched, like, and it'll be a tight one.
It's hard to call these ones. Yeah, like it's interesting. Middleton played in 2018 Munster Club Hurling Championship, but they lost the final to Imokilly. Imokilly, obviously an area team that couldn't go any further. They were hammered by Ballygunner. Ridiculous, really, that you get hammered in a county final. I think they were out the week after or something. Like you're only going to be hammered. The last time they won the Munster Club in 1987, so they're obviously on much better trajectory to be able to go on and do something in Munster now. Like the idea, Lee, that you would play a county final and get beaten in it, and then like you'd feel like a fraud of the highest order to be going on representing your county when you can't even win it.
Yeah, it's definitely a strange one. Like, I mean, you're not even carrying in that sort of momentum and that good feeling of, that you've earned this and that you're the best team in your county and now you're going to represent them. Like, it's sort of I don't know, it's definitely it'd be a bittersweet sort of pill to bring in to the provincial championship with you.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's a little bit like and it's happened to me. You lose a provincial final, and then you have to go on into a qualifiers. Usually, whenever you lose the provincial final, the majority of those teams lose the next game. You know what I mean? It's just demoralising. You can try and shake it off in meetings during the week and in training and say, look, we're back. You're not though. You're not. The least little thing. And you're going to be in trouble. St. Reinas versus Ballyhale Shamrocks. St. Reinas, I suppose, have to redeem themselves after the last showing. They were demolished by the Laois champions, Rathdowney, Niall.
Yeah, it was 18 point hammering they got that day. They've won obviously 3 county titles in a row in Offaly, but didn't get to go to Leinster to redeem themselves last year. So it's a tough kind of place to have to go.
That was a freak result though. Like, I mean, Laois champions wouldn't usually beat the Offaly champions, never mind destroy them like that.
Oh, it was a complete freak result. Like, it was actually a tight enough game. I remember listening to it on the radio. It was tight enough up until half time, and then Reinas had I think it was Paul Quirk was sent off, and from there they just completely capitulated, and Rathdowney got a few goals for a finish, so it probably flattered them a small bit, and right. It didn't look too good for Reinas, but it's a tough place to go to be trying to redeem yourself, to be playing Ballyhale Shamrocks. Like, I know they probably weren't at their unbelievable best last weekend against Mount Leinster Rangers, but they always seem to do enough. And while Reinas, they've a lot of good players, a number of players who played for Offaly, like Ben Keneally, he's the Offaly captain. Joey O'Connor is a dual player for Offaly, played hurling and football. There's Sean Dolan as well, who's a brilliant dual player. Like, so they have a lot of good players, St. Reinas, and obviously a consistent team to have done it 3 years on the go now, in a row now. But against Ballyhale, like, it's going to be tough for them.
Yeah, no, it definitely will. Last hurling one, Lee, you'll be glad to hear about.
I'm sweating here, so I am.
Jeez, what's Wooly going to ask me about this now?
Yeah.
Is in O'Moore Park. It's in O'Moore Park, I'm pretty sure. Am I right? Clough-Ballacalla versus Kilmacud Crokes. This is on RTE at 6:15 on Saturday night. Again, Clough-Ballacalla coming off a great win, and I think Kilmacud Crokes are beatable here. Like, I mean, you know, they're no Coola coming down, you know, where you'd be up against it. It's a winnable game for Clough-Ballacalla.
I'd say it is, and they're definitely thinking that going into it, because Clough-Ballacalla are the team in form at the moment. Like, they haven't lost a game under Declan Laffin, who's a Lockmore man, a former Lockmore player as well, and I suppose Lockmore have the magic touch at the moment, like, and he's brought that to Clough-Ballacalla, and like, we've seen how good they were that day against Rapparees. Like, it was tight enough for a while, but when Clough-Ballacalla got going just before half time, like, Rapparees never really got close to them, and that was because of players like, you know, Willie Hyland was absolutely brilliant that day, and you were talking about him. He's not hurling for Laois, like, but like, what a brilliant club player he is for them, and just a real stylish player, and he'll be great. I'm looking forward to even getting to watch him again after watching him there 2 weekends ago. And Lee Clear, it was another one who was tremendous that day. Like, so Clough-Ballacalla, like, they'll definitely be confident, like, having beaten the Wexford champions, and I know that gap might have affected them or whatever, but Clough-Ballacalla won't worry about that. Kilmacud Crokes, like, they kind of scraped over Nafina in that Dublin final, but in fairness to them, they gave Raharney of Westmeath a good clip in the next day, scored 5 goals, and Ronan Hayes and Alex Constantine got 2 goals each. And, you know, for lads like that to be on form, they could eat, like, and such big lads as well in these conditions, they could easily bag a goal or two to put Clough-Ballacalla on the back foot, like. Yeah,
no, definitely. And another thing with Clough-Ballacalla, a little bit like Lockmore Castellina, Lee Clear in the half back line, Willie Hyland in midfield, you have Picky Maher in the half forward line, you have Willie Dunphy, and you have young Stephen Bergen, who's on the county panel. You know, they have a lovely spread of their county players, and you need that on every line of the field. So moving on from the club matches, the Hurling All Stars have been announced. Where do we start with this? The most ever in hurling or football. The most previous was 10, I think, in 2008 with Kilkenny. Limerick have got 12 All Stars, and the most incredible thing about this is in my opinion, 3 of the 4 that are unlucky are Limerick men. Like, I mean, it's nothing short of unbelievable. And the great thing about this All-Star team as well, barring Tony Kelly, who I don't think he should have got one, every player's in his position because they're all Limerick. There's 12 of them Limerick men.
I know, I seen the picture this morning, and it was just like, I thought I was looking at Limerick naming their team or something for a league game. Like, it was just so many Limerick lads. And I suppose this year, like, I was kind of racking my head this morning of which way, like, how is there lads you could try and squeeze into this team, but that is what you're trying to do. You're kind of trying to squeeze them in to give maybe Cork, just because they got to the final, just to give them someone on the team, you know. But the thing about it this year, I find, is like, you're looking at lads like in other years, players like Owen Cody, Jason Ford, and these type of lads, like, they had brilliant years. Like, Jason Ford was scoring all around him for Tipperary.
Tim O'Mahony, Patrick Horgan, Jack O'Connor, all these lads.
Jack O'Connor, he's one I was going to say. There's lots of lads who are kind of, they had brilliant years, and in other years they probably would have got All-Stars, and there's players who've had worse years and have got All-Stars.
Even John Conlon you could even throw into the mix. Dermot Ryan, you know.
You could say going, like, there was a few, maybe Stephen Bennett as well. Like, there was so many lads that were, Kieran Bennett too, that just hurled well, but I suppose that's a testament to the standard of hurling that was played this year. There were so many standout performers that lads like Cody and Ford, they're not really getting a mention. Like,
are Cork unlucky, Lee, without having to know the ins and outs of hurling? They've made an All-Ireland final. They have no All-Star. Now, I'd say this is unprecedented as well. I don't think this has ever happened. Like, I mean, to not get one. Now, we're not trying to make an argument for somebody or not for somebody. Like, we're saying, you know, the 3 obvious ones would be Jack O'Connor, there would be Patrick Horgan, and Tim O'Mahony would probably be the 3 that you would say are in with a shout. For me, they don't get one because of who they're up against, and it's very hard to squeeze onto that team. Like, I mean, the other time this happened was 2008. Waterford got to the All-Ireland final and got destroyed by Kilkenny. destroyed in the final. A very, very similar situation. Waterford beaten in the first round of the Munster Championship, got a great run through the qualifiers. Cork this year were beaten in the first round of the Munster Championship. They went on to have three good wins on a row: Clare, Dublin and Kilkenny. So they won 3 games and they lost 2, right? So I suppose the Waterford got 1 All-Star in 2008 after getting destroyed in the final. Only one, Owen Kelly at full forward. He was scoring heavily, which, you might make the argument Patrick Horgan deserved one then. But do they deserve one for winning 3 and drawing 2? Their standout wins were against Clare and Kilkenny, fantastic games. I don't know. I'm on the fence. Should one been pushed in to mark the fact they made the All-Ireland final, or is winning 3 and losing 2 enough and being humiliated in a final?
See, there's no way that you can say that they're not unlucky, to go on that journey, and especially with the win over Kilkenny and the manner that they did it in the semi-final as well.
Yeah.
It seems really harsh, to be fair, that they didn't get it. But then you look at it, what's strange is that you're making a team of all-stars, but it's on individual merits. So in many ways, it doesn't really matter in that respect, and what you've won and what you've lost as a team. It's down to these people in their individual positions.
Yeah.
But if you're talking even with statistics, like Patrick Horgan, I think he's the championship's top scorer this year. So for him to score more than everyone else and still not get an All-Star, you're still weighing that up against whoever you're trying to fight a position for him in terms of Limerick. I don't know. It probably, you just got to put it down. You take it all back. Who's the best full back line, and you take all the players from selection, and if it works out, if it's more Limerick than it is Cork, then you just got to take each one of them in, isolation. And you can't just say, just because they're in the final, I don't think you can just shoehorn one in. Although, like you say, it's the first time ever that this has been the case, and it does seem very harsh. They probably thought they would get at least one. Yeah,
because you look at it, Aaron Gillane got 1-5 in the semi-final, 1-6 in the final. He came on and turned the game around kind of against Tipperary when he was needed. I'd say Patrick Horgan, and I would make that argument. If Patrick Horgan got an All-Star, no one would probably give out about it. Do you know what I mean? So I do think Cork probably deserve maybe the Patrick Horgan one, and I'd put Patrick Horgan in instead of Tony Kelly. Because when you look at it, Tony Kelly was a shoe-in last year. He had 3 or 4 Roy of the Rover style games, and then he started this year in a similar vein against Waterford, a full forward. Remember one point he got, the ball came in a long clearance maybe from the half back line. He just took it on the hurl, all into one go. He scored 5 or 6 points anyways, right? So Tony Kelly played 4 games this year. He was outstanding against Waterford, outstanding against Cork in the Gaelic rounds. Now, when Tony Kelly's outstanding, he's just the greatest player, in the country. There's no one comes close to him the way he covers the ground and glides around. He gets really into it and fists to the crowd. But the reality is Tony Kelly wasn't great against Tipperary and he wasn't great against Wexford. Now, our 2 outstanding games, he didn't even play past the qualifiers. He didn't make quarter-final, semi-final, final. Patrick Horgan played all those 3 games. When you actually break it down like that, Patrick Horgan was outstanding again. Well, not maybe outstanding, very good against Kilkenny. I think he scored 6 from play. Is Tony Kelly deserved to be in on that team for 2 outstanding games in the year?
Yeah, I'm replacing Tony Kelly as well, and I'm putting Aaron Gillane in, not Patrick Horgan, to be honest.
So you can't make a case. Well, there's 2 things here. Can you make a case for someone from Cork, and does Tony Kelly deserve one?
Well, you were kind of saying, does someone from Cork deserve one? And I suppose for me that comes down to between Aaron Gillane and Patrick Horgan.
Right.
And if it's a straight shootout for Tony Kelly's position, because I'd agree with you with what you said there. It was outstanding last year, Tony Kelly, and he was better last year. He was good this year. He was a little bit better last year. He was sensational that day against Wexford, and there was another day as well. And I think, having played so well against Waterford in the first game this year, people were nearly geez, Tony Kelly, sure, he's nailed on for an All-Star again. And he did, he that day against Cork, I'll never forget that point he scored. Do you remember when he tapped Niall O'Leary on the helmet?
Under the stand.
One of the best points you've ever seen. And there was a lot of sensational moments from Tony Kelly. The goal against Tipperary was unreal as well. And I suppose everything he does it with such style. You're you're nearly giving him man of the match straight away. But I think Aaron Gillane's contribution is definitely what he did. He changed that Munster final when Limerick were up Schitt's Creek completely. They were I think they were 10 points down when he came on. He got a point straight away. He took the shot to Seamus Flanagan, got the rebound goal from, and he scored another point as well. And he was just like John Kiley started that game without him, and Limerick did not look the same whatsoever without him. Like, and he brought him on after half an hour, and that coincided with Limerick kind of completely turning the tables on Tipperary. And in the semi-final against Waterford, he scored 1-5. He was good that day, got the brilliant goal to sort of finish Waterford off. And in the final, sure, he got an unbelievable goal. He scored 3 points from play, 3 frees. Like, he was just, like, he was one of the key men for Limerick this year in winning the All-Ireland. Like, so that's, I think that's an absolute cert for an All-Star, to be honest, Aaron Gillan.
Yeah. So like Aaron Gillan, Dan Morrissey, like it's easier work backwards. Aaron Gillan, Dan Morrissey and Nicky Quaid, arguably 3 of their best players, didn't get All-Stars. Obviously Owen Murphy's way more this is the James McGarry, Brendan Cummins conundrum. Whereas Owen Murphy pulls off the Brendan Cummins spectacular saves. His puck-outs a lot of the time go along. Like I remember Owen Murphy was criticising the Wexford game when Wexford were coming back at them. He continued to go along with his puck-outs. You know, that kind of... He makes some of these spectacular saves, all that's forgotten about. Nicky Quaid does not miss puck-outs. His puck-outs don't go astray. They go where they want. They go to hand. And often that's not... And I'm the same. I don't really... Puck-out and kick-out analysis bores me a little bit, but that's the bread and butter of it. Do you know what I mean? And Nicky Quaid's suffering for that. And plus he's suffering because he's behind the best back six in the country, and he's not making those spectacular saves because there are no shots being taken on him, and all those things are being added up. Like Dan Morrissey also came on against Tipperary when Limerick were in up shit creek, had no fullback presence. Tipperary were going along with their puck-outs and they were all over the place. He settled down that ship and settled down the ship for the rest of the year. And like I'm making a case 15 Limerick, man.
Jesus, no, it's like I actually, when I was making my team, like I had Dan Morrissey in there ahead of Prunty. I think I had I was giving it to Tim O'Mahony. I was giving Cork one. It was ahead of Diarmuid Burns. Like, but it's
you're forcing that now. And to be fair, Prunty is probably a little bit more dynamic than Dan Morrissey. Dan Morrissey does this simple thing, gives it off, where Prunty might kind of, bald-headed go out in front of his man. And he had some good games. He struggled against Shane McCallan. I wouldn't be against it, but like, I mean, if the whole 15 were from Limerick, like you could, I don't know, like you'd be well within your rights. Anyways, we spent loads of time on that. Player of the year is going to be Keane Lynch. Young player of the year is probably between Owen Cody and Aidan McCarthy. I don't know, Owen Cody's got enough of these. He probably deserves it this year more than any other year. Has he got 2 already, Owen Cody? Win the last 2?
He won the one last year, and he was probably slightly lucky, like, because it wasn't his best year.
Yeah, I think Aidan McCarthy's a great player. He deserves to be marked as a young player of the year.
He is a tremendous player, in fairness, but if we're going on this year alone, I'd say Owen Cody has to get it. Like, he was unreal that day against Wexford, and he was probably he was Kilkenny's he was their main man today against Cork too. So, like, Aidan McCarthy he's brilliant to watch and he's a brilliant player, but I'd be giving it to Owen Cody.
Right, okay, so Football All-Stars, Lee, this is going to be announced tomorrow night. This is the surprise. It's always interesting, when with they alternate, obviously, the years of which is the surprise on the night, and it's obviously not a surprise on the night because they hear the night before, so they're not going up there wondering what's going on. It's just the rest of us probably hear. Who was it? Mike and Quinlivan got the All-Star when they got to the All-Ireland semi-final that year, and Declan Brown texted them the night before and says congratulations or something. Wasn't that it? I think something.
I remember hearing about that before.
Quinlivan hadn't been told at that stage, but Declan Brown had heard, and he broke the news to Quinlivan. I think that was it. But anyways, the Football All-Stars, like, I mean, I don't know, there's a few nailed on positions here. Niall Morgan's nailed on, Hampsey's nailed on. Peter Hart, Paddy Durkin, Lee Keegan are probably nailed on in the backs. We'll go with 2 backs up for grabs and we'll discuss them. Midfield is nailed on, Kilpatrick and Ruan. The half forward line of McGeary, Paddy Clifford and Myler for me is nailed on. McCurry, David Clifford is nailed on. So the 2 in the full back line we'll start with that probably are up for some sort of a debate. I have Pádraig O'Hora full back and Michael Mckiernan cornerback. Who have you gone for?
I think I put in Ronan McNamee.
At full back?
Yeah, I think so. I thought he was outstanding this year, in fairness. I think you picked, I was just sort of looking at your team as well. You had Michael Mckiernan, and the more I think about it, in cornerback position, he has been fantastic, to be fair. But now that I've seen the Limerick team, I feel like just picking all the Tyrone players, to be honest. So I didn't know we could be that biased. But,
have you the entire Tyrone full back line on your team?
Yeah, I think who did I have now? Paddy Hampshire. No, I had Paddy Hampshire and I had Ronan McNamee. And then just sort of moved Pádraig O'Hara to cornerback,
Pádraig
like,
O'Hara to
or
cornerback.
basically,
Okay, so
yeah, just sort of shifted it that road. I had Michael Mckiernan missing out just on my team, but I do feel harsh in even saying that.
yeah, I think Michael Mckiernan was absolutely outstanding all year, both going forward and defending. For a fella a lot of the talk kind of was about Niall Sludden not being in favour at the start of the year. Neither was Mckiernan, and he just turned out to be, really, really outstanding the whole season. Peter Hart, Paddy Durcan, Lee Keegan. We're probably moving Lee Keegan out from the full back line where he played most of it. But let's be honest, Lee Keegan's getting an All-Star, and he will get an All-Star for what he did kind of from the half-back line, driving them forward up. So I suppose, while I don't like picking players out of position, Lee Keegan is getting his All-Star for what he did more as an attacking half-back than he is for what he did kind of defending in the full-back line.
Yeah, and it is sort of fair enough because, I mean, he was just absolutely devastating from that, and he was such a major concern throughout the whole, and especially because in recent years, people were sort of saying that, he's maybe past his best and he'd sort of peaked. But this year he just sort of revitalized. He was flying fit, an absolute machine. He looked like one of the youngest men on the pitch, even though he's obviously one of the more experienced of the Mayo old guards. But he was just frightening from that half back line, making his runs from the back line. Peter Hart, yeah, I think he's a nailed on cert. But I did see some debate on Twitter, people not thinking that he was as good this season, but I actually thought from halfback in a settled position, because Mickey Hart would have been guilty of moving him around a little too much, and not giving him a sort of settled position, trying him out at centre halfback and positions like that. But I do think number 7, the halfback line, is definitely where he's done his best work, and he was brilliant this year.
Yeah, I think he was more than solid this year, Peter Hart. I don't see anybody that's going to shift him out of there. The big question, we're talking about Cork. They got to an All-Ireland final. Dublin got to an All-Ireland semi-final. Does a Dublin player get on the team? I've Kieran Kilkenny squeezing in at corner forward.
Yeah, no, not for me. I think Ryan O'Donoghue probably deserves that position more than Kieran Kilkenny for sure. And then even looking back, an honourable mention, probably not enough to squeeze him in, but Daniel Flynn was excellent this year for Kildare. I thought he was really, really good. But if you're comparing Kieran Kilkenny this season to Ryan O'Donoghue, I think O'Donoghue's season sort of marred a little because people just think of the penalty miss in the final. But he did, he'd already kicked like 5 points before that. He was very good on the dead ball. He had a big boots to fill in terms of Killian O'Connor being missing, and he was excellent throughout the whole season. And I do think that he just edges it ahead of Kieran Kilkenny.
Yeah, well, Ryan O'Donoghue got some scores. First 2 games you'd nearly write off. He got scores against Leitrim and against Sligo. Kieran Kilkenny was very good against Mayo. He was really good in the first half. I think he got 3 from play in total. He was very good against Kildare. Sometimes people dismiss Dublin and Leinster, but Kildare are a bloody Division 1 team next year. Like, if Kildare were in Connacht and, Ryan O'Donoghue scored 3 or 4 points from play against them, it would be rated a lot higher, or, against Roscommon. Are Roscommon any better than Kildare? I don't think so. It's difficult to know. I've put Kilkenny in there. I've gone for Tyrone 8, Mayo 4, Kerry 2, Dublin 1. Kind of breakdown, which I think is fair. Again, if Ryan O'Donoghue got it ahead of Kilkenny, I don't think there'd be any kind of war outside of Dublin supporters.
In terms of just Kerry, as you mentioned there, will Paddy Clifford as a dead on cert? Do you think he is ahead of even Sean O'Shea? Sean O'Shea was this year's top scorer of the championship, and I thought he was very dangerous. And he still played sort of well in the semi-final against Tyrone, while Paddy Clifford was well beaten by Conor Meyler in that sense.
Yeah, I don't. Paddy Clifford still got 2. I don't know. Paddy Clifford battled well that day. Just Meyler was all over him. I don't know if Sean O'Shea was outstanding. I just think Paddy Clifford's form in Munster was so good. He was in the running for Player of the Year that he would be unlucky not to get an All-Star. Again, if it was between him and Sean O'Shea, you wouldn't have too many arguments. Now, there's a lot of 50-50s here. I wouldn't be passionately saying Clifford over Sean O'Shea any day, at all.
There is. It's very tough. It's very tough. Even that one you said, Kieran Kilkenny and Ryan O'Donoghue, it's another tough one as well. I suppose in the Paddy Clifford, he's maybe just from play, he's a little bit more eye-catching, I'd say, maybe than Sean O'Shea. Sean O'Shea's not as Paddy Clifford has this kind of dynamism about him. He takes that on, beats him with a dummy or something like that.
And sorry to cut you off, Paddy Clifford played centre forward all year. Sean O'Shea played in the full forward line most of the year, you know. So, like, I mean, Sean O'Shea realistically is up against David Clifford, you know, and Paddy is Sean O'Shea was moved out of position this year.
Yeah, it's I suppose it's a tough one that way, and I suppose the best people to ask would be Kerry fans, because they'd be maybe kind of closer to it and who they think would get it. But it's like between the hurling and the football, it's such tight margins, and there's always going to be someone who's like slightly unlucky, and it seems to be more so even this year that there's so many lads vying for one position that I wouldn't like to be picking the team myself.
No, definitely not. So, Footballer of the Year, Kieran McGeary. We'll see how this pans out tomorrow night. Obviously, Young Footballer of the Year. I'm saying Oisín Mullen is Young Footballer of the Year, and I'd like your opinion on how Darragh O'Canavan even made the shortlist of 3 for Young Footballer of the Year as a throwman.
Yeah, I don't know. There just was no young footballers this year, I think. I mean, I love Darragh O'Canavan, and he's so exciting when he comes onto the pitch, and he did make a big difference in the semi-final and in the final. And even just a boost seeing him come on, you know, he brings a dynamism and an air of excitement about him. But we definitely haven't seen the best of him. There's definitely more to come. And if he can get a string of games without injuries, because it's the same with the club season this year, just injuries seem to be hampering him very early on, then, like, you know, he's more than capable of them being, you know, up there as a young player of the year sort of prospect. But no, I mean, he missed most of this season. I think he missed the entirety of the All Star Championship.
Did we talk about this before? We did, or was I talking to somebody else about this?
I think we did. I think we mentioned it. To be fair, I don't understand him being picked there. To be fair, I think it's Oisín Mullen's nailed on. He won it last year as well, so this will be 2 years in a row for Oisín.
Yeah, the Geelong Cats will be absolutely delighted with that. They've invested so much money in and so much effort into his underage talents to get him. Shout out to Tommy Doyle here, Niall, before we take a quick break and come back. Joe McDonough, Hurler of the Year. Cheddar Plunkett would be delighted with this. Huge fan of Tommy Doyle. Cheddar Plunkett always was, and funnily enough, his best performance for Westmeath, and which kind of got him national prominence, was he cleaned Shamie Callanan out of it at full back in Thurles in the qualifiers one year. Westmeath did really well against, I think it was 2017. Tip had lost to Cork in Thurles, and he was brilliant that day, full back. He's won Player of the Year now as centre back. He's been moved out. Obviously, they're not raining ball in on top of him anymore. That's not how the game has gone. So Tommy's had to kind of reinvent himself a little bit, and he's gone out centre back.
Wasn't that what he was saying to you in an interview there last year? He was in full back, and teams have kind of worked out that whatever ball they do put up in the air, he's going to come down and catch it. So he moved out to centre back, and he was loving it out there. And I think that's what he plays there for his club, Loughlin Gales, as well. And like, I think Cheddar loves Tommy Doyle. I think everyone loves Tommy Doyle because he's such a wholehearted player and real sort of dynamic and an eye-catching player, the way he goes up for the ball, and when he's a big man as well, he's coming out and he's ready to floor someone. Like, and
Westmeath's Daithí Burke.
Definitely, yeah, like just a bulldozer of a man, like, and it's always very exciting to watch him play, but he's also like a brilliant hurler and one of the best Westmeath have had, like.
Yeah, exactly. Congratulations to Tommy Doyle. All right, we'll take a quick break and come back with a little bit more. So we were talking on Monday, lads, about Conor Glass. Niall, remember the fetch? He went up and he put his knee into the back of the Glen player. I can't remember which one it was, but he got up and he kind of knew the minute the ref blew the whistle, he handed the ball down like he'd done something wrong. But he's been out on Twitter anyways, and he's been talking about this, and he says this is what he says on Twitter. He says, big grey area in the GAA. The rule book states to charge an opponent in the back or to... Oh, sorry, I'll do that again. The rule book states to charge an opponent in the back or to the front. And he says, in my opinion, the action of taking a specky, that's what the AFL call it when you get up on someone's back, is not deemed a charge. We are taught to jump when you're fetching with the knee up. And if the opposition is standing under the ball, well, then that's his own risk. I tend to agree with him here. Like, when you're fetching, I'll throw this to Lee actually, who played more football than you. When you're fetching in Gaelic football, the natural thing is to put your knee up. I don't know, maybe it's a bit like Niall in hurling, where you go to catch and you put your hurley up to kind of, it's just a natural kind of way of doing it. And if a fella's in front of you, should you have to put your knee down and stand, put your two legs down, straightly and change your whole fetching technique because the fella in front of you has not has not judged the pitch of the ball. You have, and your knee goes in his back. It's definitely an interesting one.
No, it definitely is, because you're actually coached to keep your knee up. It's to protect you from not someone taking the legs from in under you. But I think that's in the theory that you're jumping alongside someone competing for a ball.
Right.
And you both have your knee up, because then the rule would also suggest that you're not allowed to push anyone in the back, and the push doesn't necessarily mean it's your hands. Like if you were to, charge into them or use your leg or your knee to propel off them, that could be technically classified as a push. But this is why it's a grey area, because you've got contradicting things there all in the one rule. But I'm literally like 5'6", so I'm not jumping or competing for anything with anyone. But in terms of Conor Glass's situation, it must be very frustrating, because this is a skill that he has and he's magical at it as well. And it's something he's obviously honed in the AFL. He sees the ball in the air and he knows that he can get it above everyone else by using, first of all, the sharpness and being clever enough to see his surroundings faster than everyone else, to propel up, catch it beautifully and bring it down without hurting the person in front of him. So it must be very frustrating to have this skill in your arsenal and you're not allowed to use it. And it's a grey area as it is.
Yeah, it must be. It must ask. For me, fetching is hard enough to begin with. I could never do it. Terrible fetcher, as anyone listens to the show will know. I just misjudged them, ran under them, or if I did get to the pitch of them, it could go through my bloody hands. Whatever. Anyways, I could never get to the pitch of it. Was the hardest thing for me at full speed to get out in front of your man. How they can do it to judge getting your knee on someone's back to give yourself that push and then catch the pitch of it. For me, it's almost impossible. It is a bit dangerous though. We were talking on Monday about getting it in the shoulder blades. I don't really know what to think of it, Niall. I think it looks class. If a player got injured in the shoulder blades because of it, it's not ideal. I think it's an unusual skill, as in I don't think we'll see everybody doing it, because I don't know. Maybe if there's a mark in GA, maybe if you saw Conor Glass getting away with it, young lads would practice it.
Yeah, it is a bit dangerous, as you said and as we said on the show last week, or on Monday. But I suppose that is the skill, is judging the ball. And Darren Hughes, he misjudged that ball, that he was caught under it. And I know anyone, whether it's hurling or football, if you're caught under a high ball, that you're going to, someone is going to nail you, and it's the worst place to be when there's a ball coming high and you're just standing there, ready to be nailed by someone.
Yeah, you could end up smashing into you, both of you fall and you're on the ground.
Yeah, and it's your own fault that you are in that position. You should have been further back. You should have judged your jump. And just watching Conor Glass's catch, it was, as you said, it was an unbelievable piece of skill. Not just to judge the ball, but to judge the timing, the right time to put your knee up on his back and to kind of.
But is he propelling? Is he using the knee in the back to get that little bit higher? Because if he is doing that, he is kind of charging with his knee. That's moving away from the technique of just bringing your knee up. Do you get me? So in that sense, Glass isn't really correct. If he just ends up catching it and his momentum follows through and he hits in front of the player with his knee, that is okay. But if you're going to use the other fella's back with your knee to get that bit higher, is Glass probably wrong then? It
seemed like that was the way he was using it, because he was up and he was back before he got the ball and then kind of sprang up again to get the ball. So it's a tough one. It's obviously allowed in AFL, and that's what's called the specky. And there was a picture of Caelan Mooney doing the same thing. He played AFL as well, and he caught a ball similar against Roscommon a few years ago, and he said he got away with it, the referee didn't call it. So it is a tough one kind of to know which way is right, whether, as you said, if you follow through after, then it probably is
that's not a free.
It's not a free, but the other way, I was saying the other day that I think it's probably too dangerous, but I'm kind of coming towards Conor Glass's perspective that if you're caught there, it's your own fault.
Maybe. I don't know which side to come down on. Maybe in professional games they can practice it more. In GEA, if they all start to do this, I think maybe it could get, get messy. And not only, if you don't have that rightly, it's not just the fella who you're putting the knee into that's going to get hurt. You could get up so high that your knee could go on a fella's shoulders. Now you're completely out of control in midair and come down in your neck or something.
Yeah, exactly. You can't get away from the fact that Conor Glass was a professional athlete, so he's done that and he sort of made it look easy, and then we're all sort of looking at it being like, God, everyone should do that. But the reality is, if he gets away with that, then players who aren't capable are going to be trying that, and that haven't been coached to how to do it correctly and safely and to the best of their ability. You will end up hurting either the person in front of you or yourself, because I'm not even sure he used his back to get any higher. He just sort of used it to stay where he was longer, so he could lean back and catch it, so it didn't go behind him. But if you're going to be trying to do that, you overjudge how much you put the knee in. You propel yourself backwards. Now you're landing on your neck, and you can't even blame anyone in that situation, because you were trying something that was definitely a bit dangerous. Like if it was brought in as something, a specky or whatever they want to call it, it need to be something that then has to be coached, and not just that it's a freestyle thing that everyone tries. Just because they've seen Conor do it.
So, backroom teams would go from 20 to 21. You'd have a specky coach that'd have to follow everywhere on the bus. Maybe someone bluffer like Stephen Poacher would become a specky coach, and he would do coaching sessions every Saturday morning, pretending he knows how to do it. Talking about backroom teams, right? Wait till you hear John Myler talking about backroom teams. So the first bit, there's sense to it, right? So I'm going to read out this. Can't remember where I was reading these quotes. He says, he's talking about management and how backroom teams started getting bigger. As it moved along, the whole thing changed. There was a gradual introduction of more and more people into the background. The trainer came in, then a strength and conditioning person, different coaches came in, stats and analysis came in, IT came in, psychologists came in, and suddenly you've gone from 10 on a match day to a small company of 30 or 40 people who have all individual functions and tasks to do. You have masseurs, the medical staff, the physios. It's a little company. So the manager now, you're managing the management team who are managing the players. That's ultimately it. And it just, the dynamic of, the old school manager who did everything. And you'd have one masseur, and now it's every team has a thing, and he hasn't even mentioned the goalkeeping coaches and Dave to be there. I don't know, do all these people need to be there on match day? Some managers say they need 2 buses now, one for the backroom team and the other, and to be all in the dressing room and to be all in the way. I think, for me, I would keep it simple. But he goes on to say the manager's job today is coordination of all the different units within the backroom team. And then you have lots of things, going on off the field as well, which have nothing to do with hurling, but you have to be aware of them too. This is the one that really got me, right? So he goes on to say, half of the Cork panel in my time were in college, and exams at third level are always on in May, which is Munster Championship time. I had a fella appointed, and we said to him, we need to make sure all these fellas have their assignments done and their study done to make sure that they're not stressed out on a Sunday, because if they have exams on a Monday, it might affect their performance entirely. Now, this is a new one to me. So all the stuff beforehand, I was saying grand. And then he's saying, right, there's stuff outside of the game you have to follow too. He had a fella appointed to make sure lads had their assignments and things done in college, that it wouldn't affect them on a Sunday. Now, I have to say that this is micromanagement of the highest order. Some people might listen to that and go, oh God, they're covering every base. If a fella I went to training to not be thinking about that nonsense and your college work and your messing, that's all other side of your life. I never worried about college work. Football was a release from that kind of stuff. And maybe fellas have are disposed kind of differently to worry. But if I had somebody going to train on a Thursday night or Tuesday night saying, have you your assignment done now? Because I'd be telling them to very, very no uncertain terms, that's none of your business, buddy.
Well, I'd say if I had someone asking me had my assignments done, I'd probably tell them I had them done even if I didn't have them done, because how is he, it honestly doesn't make sense, because how is he going to know? I'd say everyone is just going to say to him, oh sure, of course I have them done, whether you have them done or you don't have them done. And what is this, lads? It's hardly like a homework coach, or what is this lad's title?
Homework officer.
It's honestly as if you're dealing with a bunch of babies,
because it's micromanagement, it's micromanagement, right?
They're 23 or 4 years of age, the lads you're talking about, lads in college, and they don't want to be going to play football or playing hurling to find out about the college that they've been kind of dossing through, or that they've gone through all day and don't want to hear about it again.
Yeah, I remember when was it? 1998. I was doing marketing in DCU. But I'd say the best football in my career was played across the years where I kept dropping out of college and, didn't do exams and, all that kind of thing. But maybe that's because I wasn't even remotely stressed about it or thinking about it. But I was in college in DIT, and I was commuting up and down, and we were in the All-Ireland final against Kerry on the Saturday, and we lost it. And I had my exams looming on the Monday, and not a tap had I done for these exams, not a dicky bird. And way behind and everything, had been bluffing all year, but all this was catching up on me now, and I was going to be found out in these exams. But anyways, I played well on the Saturday. The exams weren't even remotely in my mind, and we lost the final. I played all right in the game, and we went out on the Saturday and all day on the Sunday. And my solution was I just didn't go into the exams, and I dropped out of DIT. The whole year was for nothing. There was a lot of tension in the house at home. I don't know, Lee, what you think. Like, a young lad is entitled, if he wants, to not give a shit about college and not go to play Gaelic games, something that is thoroughly enjoyable and has its own pressures, and have someone annoying them about having their bloody exam work done.
Yeah, exactly. It just falls under the category of, like, it's none of your business, really, to be honest. I mean, it doesn't, I don't see it as a help. That seems to me like an added stress. Like, your teachers or your lecturers or something are already on to you, big deadlines and exams coming up. Then you go to training that night, and then there's some guy there telling you, oh, your exams and your assignments are coming up. You know what I mean? Like, it would drive you insane. Yeah. It would make you not want to go to university. It'd make you not want to go to training. Like, you would just end up avoiding all of it. I don't even know how do you become an exam officer or whatever it was doing. Like, is it a former teacher? Do they still get the tracksuit, or are they just there for the merchandise?
Yeah,
running around in the court gear, telling people that they're the exam officer. Like, it's there to try and support the players in a way that they feel a little under pressure and stuff. Like, it needs to be. Maybe if it was the sports psychologist in that situation, then, and it's on a voluntary basis where you can go to them and say that you feel really overwhelmed about, and exams are a part of that, and you had someone to talk to help you sort things out. But you can't be imposing that sort of stuff on players, and like, especially at that age, it's not even like they're doing they're 16 or they're doing their leaving cert or whatever. I mean, they're adults effectively doing higher education because they chose to do it. So it's completely within their rights.
Yeah, like, I'm sure, marriage breakups have put a huge stress onto players as well, or relationships not going well. Would they put a relationship counsellor in onto the backroom team, to make sure you're landing to this match in tip-top shape? We'll visit your house, we'll make sure your relationship is going. For me, it's a load of nonsense. I don't want to be I've never heard of this before, so I don't know if this is widespread. I get the whole we're ticking every box kind of thing, but, like, I mean, where does that stop?
Surely it's not an official title, like
I made that up.
But I know, but, like, surely it's not an official job, like, you're getting a lad in to do this. Like, it has to be someone, like, like, as Lee said, it always comes back to psychology with Lee, but surely it's a psychologist, or, like, like a team player. There's like a player rep or something.
Yeah.
Someone within the team who's nominated, because if there's a lad who's doing this as a full-time job, like, there couldn't be. No,
I don't think this is. And I'm not being too critical of John Myler either. I'm sure it was the best intentions that they're doing this, and maybe it's not as extreme as we're talking about. So we're talking last week about this is retirement season, 2 hurling ones. The Colm Spillane one's very disappointing, Niall. Like, I mean, Colm Spillane's only 28. I'm a huge fan of his. I think he's bloody very, very good. Tight marking cornerback, which is a rarity in hurling. He's big and strong. Like, he'd be well able for the likes of Aaron Gallan. Not many cornerbacks are physically, and he's gone. And it's not through wanting to be gone. It's because of injury, which is terribly unfortunate for him. He's been riddled with injuries. He fought the whole way back, I think, to make the squad for the All-Ireland semi-final and final. But obviously it's come against him. He's going to take 4 or 5 months off now, in the hope that he's going to be able to continue on playing with his club Castle Lions. So, like, I mean, sad enough really, because in 2017-18, kind of when Cork were winning those Munsters in a row, and should have beaten Limerick that year as well, and wasn't it in 18, he was brilliant.
Yeah, he was brilliant, and it's mad that he has to go. He's only 28 years of age, like, and as you said there, he's taken 4 or 5 months out, and it was kind of like hopefully I will be able to play with my club, and like he said, he's going to do everything. He said he will play with his club, but that it's at that stage, and for such a young man, like, it goes to show just how cruel injuries can be for players, like, and he was a brilliant cornerback, a real tigerish cornerback, but he had the kind of the strength and the the presence about him as well to kind of back up that kind of aggression that he'd bring. And yeah, he was like, no matter who he was marking, like he had a bit of pace as well. And like when Cork did win those Munster titles in 17 and 18, like his pace, his strength, everything he had as a cornerback was a key part of their game. And like there would be very few corner forwards who he wouldn't be able for, just because he was such a rounded player himself.
Yeah, he had all the attributes. So I talked to him on the show before. I think it was around the time O'Kelly. He played with O'Kelly. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think it's Castlelyons.
Castlelyons is his club, but I think they're definitely he was playing with O'Kelly. Real nice fella. Another nice fella who's retired is Aiden Hart. We spoke to him at the start of this year. He's retired. I think he's had some injury issues as well, but he's probably at the stage now where he's moving on. He has a pub. Really, I think Aiden Hart's an outstanding player in that, he plays everywhere. For Gort, he's centre forward. For Galway, he was at his best as a number 7. He plays a number 4. The year that he won the All Ireland, he was brilliant in 2017. He missed out on an All Star that year. He didn't get one, but total all rounder player. I think he'll be a huge loss. He will
be a huge loss, and like he was a total all rounder, because he in the latter years of his career, I suppose, was when he was at his best. I know he started off when he was brought in around 2008, 2009. He was a corner forward, and I remember I used to go to a few of them Galway matches back in the day, and he was a decent corner forward, but he was kind of on and off the team, and he was a starting one day, maybe get a point or two, was subbed the next day. It was 2015, the year Galway got to the Ireland final against Kilkenny. He was kind of moved out to midfield that year, but he played wing back in the final and had a good game that day. And he's ever since then, he's been an absolute staple of that Galway team. He's just such a tidy kind of a hurler, and he was always mopping up. Yeah,
and there's a bit of cutting in him as well, and a hardy bit of, for a fella who's converted corner forward, you wouldn't have expected it. He liked the rough and tumble of it.
He seemed to love it. He had that bit of cut about him, and I'd say any player who was marking him, they knew all about it, because he probably wasn't the biggest man, but he just had that kind of drive about him, and I suppose that bit of drive that you want in every player on your team, he's been so consistent for Galway. From 2015 onwards, he's been just Mr. Dependable there, wing back, and you get what you're going to get from him every single day. And I suppose he had that great day 2 years ago when they beat Tipperary, and he got the brilliant goal to win the game. Tipper up by a point at that stage, and I suppose he showed his forwards instinct that day. But and he was man of the match that day as well. But I suppose it was a nice way, one of his, to have that as a memory, I suppose, to be the hero that day, because he was a brilliant player for Galway and a brilliant player for Gort as well.
Yeah, exactly. Last story here is John Costello. This is the time of the year, and I'm always take the piss kind of out of this, is when county secretaries, unknown all year, get national news, and usually their annual reports come out at this time. And it's a lot quieter than it is now. There's an awful lot going on now between the All Stars, between the provincial club championships. But usually these annual reports come out in December. It's the season's pretty much over. There's no GA news, and these annual reports make national news. So these are reports that, within the county you couldn't really care less about. It's the county secretary's annual report. It doesn't probably get much more boring than that, Lee. But traditionally these annual reports have always made national news. Only, again, I repeat, because traditionally there was nothing going on when they came out. And you'll get a headline or two out of them. I don't know how they're still making. I see headlines about Laois are in surplus, or whatever like this, or Offaly, or the county secretary. But John Costello is one that always kind of make reports, because he's the CEO, and obviously Dublin are the big country. Whatever it is about John Costello, every year he finds something else to whinge about and complain about and play Dublin poor old me violin kind of thing. And this is imagine your county winning an All Ireland. Imagine the tone of your county secretary's report would be overwhelmingly positive. Not only did Dublin win an All Ireland, they won 5 in a row, and they won 7 in 8 years. Was it 7? 7? Oh, they won 5 in a row, and they won 6 in a row. Sorry, and 7 in 8 years. Jeez, I finally got it right. And this lad, all he does is whinge half the time in his annual report and say, there's a media bias against us and we don't get credit and all this kind of stuff. So this year I was expecting a whinge, because they're not All Ireland champions, and he didn't disappoint me. he was complaining about John Connellan, who has obviously a motion coming to Congress to equalise the game's development money. He has a cut off him because he disputes one figure John Connellan gave to say how much profit they made in a year. He said, we didn't make that much profit. We made a lot of profit, but not as much as that. So he was given out about John Connellan. He's kind of playing down the role of the GPO officers. He's trying to say the game's promotion officers are not some crack team akin to the Eastern Bloc coaches who hothouse young players and turned them all into All-Ireland winners. Completely trying to distract away from he doesn't think games development officers aren't which he's trying to make out, aren't as important as he says there. Why doesn't he give them all back and put them into other counties if they're not really important? They are important. He goes on to actually describe the role of them. The role of games promotion officer is to work intensively with local schools and clubs by providing cultural and skill development initiatives appropriate to the age and ability of various playing groups. It is also to provide a programme of courses and workshops appropriate to the requirements of students and club volunteers to assist them to fulfil their various coaching functions with juvenile teams. And then he goes on to say they're not some crackpot. Nobody's saying they're crackpot. People are saying games development officers are exactly like you described them. And think of what an advantage that those games development officers are within schools and within clubs. It's completely illogical to try and defend or try and, diminish the role of games development officers by describing exactly what they do, because they are a huge advantage, Lee.
Yeah, it's so weird. You feel like in these annual conventions, they're just told to go out and try to make us sound like the plucky underdogs. And then obviously John has the hardest task when you've got a team with Dublin and all of the capital that they have to try and make them seem like, that they're hard done by in any shape or form is nearly an impossible task. But he's given it a real go here just by listing job descriptions basically and saying that it's not a big deal for some reason. None of that makes any sense to me. The games development officers, they're absolutely huge, because it's like what he said. Even the fact that they're teaching coaches how to coach right down, from grassroots all the way through, so that the biggest county that you have are all on the same wavelength in terms of their development, in terms of Gaelic football, and learning all on par with each other. And then it's not just isolated where some areas are getting it more than others and things. They're using the money. They've got a lot of money and they're using it well. I don't know why he has to come out and pretend oh yeah, we have that, but it's not as big a deal as you think it is. It's over exaggerated. It's not over exaggerated. Just be thankful that you're in a position that you can have it, and stop trying to if anything, you're putting the spotlight on it more on what an advantage you have by trying to claim that it's not an advantage at all.
Yeah, no, that's it. And he goes on about saying that, again, Croke Park, the advantage of Croke Park comes into it. He says, well, we can't afford our own stadium. That land in Dublin at that size is 50 million or whatever. And he starts kind of playing the poor Dublin thing again. Look, that's the way it is. He says, we rent Croke Park. Again, and then it starts talking about media bias, in that their COVID breach was, they got more media coverage because of their COVID breach than other counties. That's probably true, but Dublin are the 6 in a row All-Ireland champions at that time. So they're not anywhere near, Monaghan, who got caught. You can't compare one with the other. One is news in Dublin, which is the capital city, which is going to sell 1 million newspapers, and Monaghan, it's not the same national news. So there is going to be more media scrutiny against Dublin, but the payoff for that is Dublin have much more sponsorship money. Their players are much better looked after, and they have a much higher profile nationally because of how good they are. The trade-off with that is, if something goes wrong with Dublin, it is going to make more national news. And it's like the Diarmuid Connolly thing. If that wouldn't happen to a Carlow player, of course it wouldn't. It wouldn't happen to a Laois player, of course it wouldn't. Because it's Diarmuid Connolly and he's a dub, and you're the best team in the country and you're the most high profile, and he whinges about this. What's wrong with this man? Will he just accept? What a time to be alive as a dub. And all this lad does is complain and whinge.
Yeah, in fairness to him, I
don't want to hear in fairness to him. Can you not see where I'm going with this?
I might say nothing here and get back to you. No, but there was a huge amount. There was nearly, I thought, a bit too much made of that COVID thing. It was
was
front page of the, not just the sports page. It was front page of the papers in general.
Yeah, no, and
all
I'll
over
agree
the
on that.
place,
They were
and
hiding in the ditch taking videos of them.
yeah, like that was nearly one thing in the report that I would agree with him on. Like, and well, like listen, we won't get into the whole COVID thing now, but the rest of it about the GPO, like he's basically just describing why it is such a benefit, and then giving out at the same side of his mouth, really. Like, so that doesn't make too much sense. But one thing I would say, he definitely has the most entertaining secretary's reports of all the secretary reports.
No, he definitely does. He definitely does. It's like, I mean, there's a lot more in it. He's talking about 4 goals for 4 points. I'll throw this to you first quickly, and because this is a non-runner in Gaelic football. 4 points for a goal. In Gaelic football, that will only make people drop back, protect your goal, give away the point. The whole thing in hurling is you can't really do that to the same extent in hurling. There's way too many points in hurling for me now. And I do take the point, and Anthony Daly has been talking about this. He has got a real silly idea that the first goal is worth 3 and then every goal after that is worth 4. Why do you have to confuse something like that? In hurling, I would be, like, for example, in the All-Ireland final, I think Cork scored the goal. Kingston got the goal. Brilliant goal into Hill 16. And before you know it, Limerick have 2 quick-fire points gone. And that goal's cancelled out. So for that reason, like when you're hitting 30 points in a game, goals aren't worth what they used to be in hurling. I think there's a good argument in hurling for a 4-point goal. Gaelic football's not asking for this and doesn't need it. So go away with that. But in hurling, what do you think as a hurling person?
I think John Costello is the man. I think I'm agreeing with him here again.
There's 2 things. We're agreeing with him on the 4 points for hurling. We're agreeing with him on the media coverage on COVID. Just not the poor me against other counties type thing.
So it was a decent secretary's report from him. In fairness. No, but like as you said, like that, I definitely remember that Shane Kingston goal. And you're like, right, Cork are back in this game now, because they were losing. There were a few points down at that stage, and he got the goal, maybe back to 2 points. I'm thinking game is on now, and Limerick got points from like the next 2 puckouts, and the goal is nearly gone straight away. And it was the same a long way like through the year. Like, goals are just, it used to be goals win games, now they're cancelled out within nearly 5 minutes. It was the same the day Limerick came back and beat Tip. Like, Tip had 3 goals in the first half, and Limerick just kind of chased them down. They got a few goals themselves as well, but I think the 4 points, it would be more of an incentive to kind of work the ball in, and maybe to add a bit more excitement to it. Like, you wouldn't have lads, well, maybe it's not going to stop lads taking shots for points the whole time, but I suppose when the goal is on, and that is what you do want to see, like, because that is sometimes a point goes over, it's a bit like, do you know, if it's going over the whole time, the whole way through the game, it gets a bit repetitive. And you would like to see more goals in the game, and that definitely would be a good way to encourage it.
Yeah, no, definitely. We'll take a look at that. It's not like it's not often hurling people agree about changing the game. Usually you're very protective about your game. We'll see how things go in the new year. Right, that's it for today. We'll be back on Monday. Monday's my 3rd last show, so the countdown is on. We'll review all the club action. So we'll talk to you all then. Good luck.